So you said that you would like to start off with the historical, but that's not where I would like to go. Because for the Protestant position, sola scriptura is very, very crucial. Sola scriptura is one of the main doctrines. So as like a Protestant, you would agree with the Catholic position on the filioque, of course. But what we have to do is simply just prove the papacy using the Bible. Right? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Like for an example, you would agree that everything in the old covenant is going to be transferred to the new covenant because God says that he does not change and God makes eternal covenants, yes?
Yep.
Okay. So simply put, what is it? Okay. Yeah. What's Luke 22 verse 31 to 32? It says, I'm not quoting verbatim. It says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you and swift you like wheat. But I have prayed for your faith I pray for your faith not to fail, and when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. What is the definition of infallibility? The definition of infallibility is to never fail. Jesus is saying that his faith will never fail. May not may not. He says that your faith will not fail. Will not is present tense. It's saying that whenever you do these things, your faith will not fail. Because when Jesus talks to Peter, he says, I will, as like for an example, Matthew 16:18, when Jesus says, I will. So Jesus says, I will do these things, right? And so when Jesus prays for Peter's faith to not fail, and when we read Acts 16 and 15, after Peter spoke, it says that the churches were strengthened in faith and they increased in numbers daily. And when we go to Acts 15:7, Peter spoke up. He gave out a dogma. And how the way that I know it's a dogma in Acts 16, verse 4, the Greek word for dogma, the Greek word is decree, and it means dogmata. So we have the apostles spreading around the decree, the decisions made by the apostles being led by Peter. This is what St. Jerome says. I think it's letter to Augustine. So St. Jerome, he says that Peter was the prime mover of that decree. And he says that it was Peter spoke with so great authority when he spoke in Acts 15:7. So when Peter spoke, he spoke with authority. Now, this is the same way how Jesus does. Because when Jesus would speak to his people, he would say, but they have said, but what I tell you to do, like love your neighbor, that for an example, right? So just as how Jesus speaks with authority, Jesus is going to give that to Peter. It's from Jesus to Peter. It's from Jesus through Peter. There we go. Misspoke. It's from Jesus through Peter. As it is in the Old Testament, God puts his words in Moses' mouth, and Moses puts that in Aaron's. So we have Aaron speaking in Acts 15, misspoke. We have Peter speaking in Acts 15 as authority. Now, what happened after he spoke? Obviously, he spoke with authority. And when we continue reading, James says, Simeon has related how God first visited the Gentiles and make a name for his people. So when Peter spoke, he was speaking with authority and relating it to the Old Testament. Because Peter is the shepherd. As we read in John 21. John 21 is a reference to Ezekiel 34, if I'm not mistaken. So we have these cross references, right? So just like how the way that Christ leads his sheep as infallible teacher, it's going to be passed on to Peter and to his successors. Now, we won't say that Peter's going to be absolutely infallible. No, he's only going to be infallible in a restricted sense. So with this infallibility and with this great teacher, because he speaks with authority, because he is he is the shepherd, we can conclude that Peter is going to be superior to the other apostles, and going to be infallible. Do you understand?
Yes. I mean, I guess the issue that I mean, I can follow through all that line of reasoning, and I think that's fine. But, and of course, you will have to finish so that I understand all the argument completely. But I think that one of the issues that I have with that kind of reasoning is just that it seems to me that even if Peter was above the apostles in some sense and in authority, it doesn't follow in any way that he was able to transfer that authority to some specific follower
Yeah.
or well some specific
So
disciple
the way that we
of
know,
him.
it's going to transfer to the successor, because
Yeah,
as we just agreed that everything in the old covenant is going to be transferred to the new covenant, because God does not change, right? How the way that we know for a fact there's going to be a succession that's going to be, we can look at this historically, and we can look at this using the Bible. And like I told you, I want to go use the Bible. So how the way that we know it's going to be to Peter's successors is simply put, when we go to Exodus 28, we know that the priesthood of Aaron passes on him. We know that the priesthood of Aaron, we have the priesthood of Aaron, his sons inherit his garment, his sons inherit his priesthood. So there is a line of succession that passes on, because without the garment there isn't a priesthood. Isaiah 22, verse 19 to 22. So there is a succession, and it does pass on to the next person in the next. Zechariah 6, verse 9, no, verse 11 to 13. There we go. 11 to 13. So we do know that there is a succession of this priesthood, because God says that the Levitical priesthood shall never lack a man in my presence. Jeremiah 33, verse 18. So there is a succession of the Levites according to that priesthood. So, and as we do know, the Old Testament is going to be everything like the New Testament. So there's going to be a succession, and it's going to be passed on to the successors of Peter, just as Aaron's sons succeeded him, and just as their sons succeeded them, and just as their sons succeeded them. And even Paul, when he was speaking with the Jews, he says, you're not even supposed to say anything bad to the high priest. You're not even supposed to say anything bad to them. Because Paul, he blurted his mouth to a high priest, a Jewish high priest. And he said, I didn't know he was a high priest. He was like, and if I knew that he was a high priest, I wouldn't have spoke to him like the way I did. Because Paul recognized the supremacy of the high priest. He wouldn't have said that if they were just on the same level as any other Jew. No, of course. He recognizes the supremacy that high priest held, because it is the successor of Aaron. So
Okay.
okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
mm,
Um, so from here, I think we will need to stop because I need to go to the airport soon because I have to take flight.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you can perhaps send me some text, kind of to summarize all this that
No.
we've been discussing, that will be great for me.
Mm-hmm. Of
So I can keep it in my mind.
course.
And then perhaps tomorrow we can continue, or whenever you have time.
Yeah, of course, no problem. All right, God bless you, and I hope your flight is safe.
Thanks. Thanks. Bye.
That simple.